Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Mac here from Cryptstar Staking, here for another wonderful episode for you guys. Today's video, we're going to another Aleph Zero podcast for smart contracts, tokenomics, and how is the ecosystem going. It sounds like a very general topic that the Aleph Zero team is going to be covering in this podcast, so I'm here to bring it to you guys on the tube. So if you like this video and you want to see more videos like it, make sure you guys subscribe and hit that notifications bell below. Also, leave me a comment if you really like these podcasts. I'm trying to make sure I make the best use of my time here on the tube. As you guys do know, I do run a validator node for both Tezos, Aleph Zero, as well as have a full-time job as an infrastructure engineer at a space tech company. So, yeah, very busy guy. So I just want to make sure I'm utilizing the time and serving the community as best as I can. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into the podcast today.
Hi everyone, we're here at the second Twitter space of Aleph Zero, where we'll be talking about the EFP, the progress of where it's heading, what was the response so far.
Thank you for tuning into the Aleph Zero podcast. Be sure to leave a review and subscribe to get the latest insights from the core team and projects in the ecosystem. Now back to the show.
And we look at it from many perspectives as we did with the previous one. And today I'll be your host. I'm Matt Raczynski, the marketing manager of Aleph Zero, and with me I have Max Sarafin, Brian Guyen, Magda Oleksy, and Piotr Machurat, but I'll let them introduce themselves here. So yeah, we can start with Max. If you could give us a brief, intro to you.
Yeah, of course. Glad to be on here. Go by Max Scruffer. A lot of you guys know me. Very brief. I mean, I'll just keep it as this. I help manage or lead research over at WWE Ventures, as well as a few other hats and roles. I run Scruffer Consulting, which is just a small consulting practice in the Web3 space, and then tweet a lot about angel investments and different things that I think will help grow the overall ecosystem of what we see here in Web3.
Cool. So yeah, glad to have you here with all your experience and yeah, insights into the market. So yeah, on to Brian. Hi and welcome to the space.
Hi everyone. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and thanks everyone for being here. So yeah, my name is Brian, and I'm based in Vietnam. We have most of our team are in Vietnam. So I actually have a background in software engineer. So I graduated in 2013. So it's been a while ago, and I've been a software engineer for many years. And I've been working on Web3 specs about five years now. And I founded Azero when I learned about Aleph Zero 2 years ago, and I'm really amazed uh, with the things we achieved so far. And hopefully we're gonna have more support from you guys in the future, and hopefully we can contribute to the ecosystem more with our expertise.
Great, I'm sure you do. All right, so on to Magda, our ecosystem lead. You might know her from the previous space, but yeah, Magda, if you could also introduce yourself a bit.
Yeah, sure. Hi again, everybody. Pleasure to be here as always. Yeah, I mean, you pretty much introduced me already because I'm the ecosystem lead for Aleph Zero. However, if that name doesn't tell you much, then my role is basically focused on ecosystem clearly, and also I'm supporting and coordinating our whole ecosystem funding program, making sure that we are in touch with all of the projects who who are about to receive our support with all of our use cases, also with our partners from the network who are the part of the ecosystem funding program. So just making sure that it all works and that everybody gets the response that should get, and above all, that all the use cases get the support and help from our side that they expect to get. So that will be me.
Yeah, Magda is really. There wouldn't be the EFP without Magda. I'm sure about that. Yeah, and on to Piotr, also known as Pete, the main preacher of Aleph Zero development. Yeah.
So I'm Pete, and I wrote our Inc tutorials and are still writing our Inc tutorials. No, but seriously, I am the ecosystem tech lead, so my job is basically assisting our use cases, the products building on Aleph Zero in the technical way, and also verifying, let's say, eligibility for the ecosystem funding program. I also used to take care for the community validators program when the community validators were entering first testnet and mainnet. So yeah, that's the gist of what I do.
Yeah, and in case you were wondering, behind the Aleph Zero account, there's Anthony. So if you want to say hi, yeah.
Hi everyone, happy to be here.
All right, so let's kick this thing off. I think we'll focus on a few questions that we have for our today's guests, and then the floor is yours, of course, for the audience. So yeah, I think we can start with Magda because yeah, it's been a few weeks since we introduced the EFP, and yeah, what's the response so far? If you could give our audience some insight into that.
Yeah, sure. So the response has been great. So apart from like general excitement, I must say, we are obviously receiving a lot of applications. It's been around 3 weeks, I think, that like 3 weeks ago that we launched like officially launched the EFP. And I think so far we have received around 100 applications. So I think that this is quite a good score. And as you can imagine, 100 applications that we have to carefully go through and evaluate and then make some decisions regarding who do we want to like schedule like next meeting with, and have some discussions about the project and so on and so forth. So it's quite a lot of work on our side as well, like very exciting work. However, it is pretty time consuming, so I would say that it's definitely keeping us busy. But we are getting a lot of applications and a lot of interesting ones. So we are definitely happy with the outcome. We'll see, obviously, like how many more we will keep on getting, because we'll see if the tempo remains the same, or if we'll get fewer applications with time. But so far it's been really intense, I must say. So once again, around 100 applications in 3 weeks, and still getting new ones.
Yeah, that's actually our job in marketing, to give you so much that you can't process them. But yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah, but I was curious if there's a use case vertical. Like, is there so much of one certain type of applications that you're getting? For example, is the DeFi the biggest one, or how would you say that?
Yeah, I mean, there is a variety of verticals, I would say. So it's difficult to say there's just one. However, definitely on top, there is DeFi and I think gaming. So quite a lot of gaming projects as well. Quite a lot of NFT projects as well. But yeah, I'd say DeFi and gaming as like first places. But then a lot of like pretty surprising and original ones as well. So they're like I'd say it's kind of a mixture.
So yeah, maybe some of the listeners are curious how it's how does it look like when when you get the submission, and then what's next? What's the process like? Are we contacting everyone, or
Yeah. So as I said, quite a lot of applications coming in. So unfortunately, we are not able to contact everyone and talk to everyone. So pretty much how it works is that we obviously read every single application, and we have a discussion about which projects do we want to continue talking with, or which is maybe not yet at the stage where the conversation should be continued. And after we have this initial screening of the applications, we then have a grant committee set up that is meeting every. I think now with the amount of applications that we keep on getting, is meeting every week. And during that meeting, we are actually discussing all the applications that went through this first stage of like application review. So there is fewer, obviously, of them than we get, but then we have like a deeper conversation in the committee, and we analyze the project from like many aspects. And if the committee decides during that meeting that this is a project that we are interested in, that their grant application looks interesting, that their grant request is makes sense, so to say, then the next step would be to reach out to the project, and that's what typically I'm responsible for. So I reach out to the projects, and I set up next I mean I set up a meeting, which would probably where probably there would be somebody from the business side and somebody from the technical side, so that we can discuss projects from many sides, not just focusing on one thing. And then after the meeting and after the discussion, we see what comes next, because sometimes we have some comments, and we ask the use case to prepare some additional information, or there is a need to negotiate a bit the grant amount, and so on and so forth. So different scenarios for the meeting. However, the meeting would be the next step, and then during that meeting we decide further steps as well. And I think that is definitely worth mentioning is that as those the application evaluation process is pretty time consuming, and we have many team members involved in the process, then it can take up to 3 weeks for us to come back to a project. So even if there are some use cases listening who maybe sent their grant application, let's say 2 weeks ago, and they haven't heard back from us yet, that doesn't mean that we are not interested. I mean, we are still evaluating the application, so we might be getting in touch. However, the thing is that we are not able to get in touch with everybody. So if you've sent your application, let's say 2 months ago, and you still haven't heard back from us, that means that probably it just wasn't the best time to get in touch with you. So so that would be pretty much the process.
Yeah, great for the insight. And I see we have some requests for speaking. So just a heads up that we will get back to all the questions from the listeners at the end of the session. And yeah, so Magda, you said about the committee, and yeah, Piotr, you are part of it. So it would be good to know your perspective on, you're the dev here. So are you looking for something specific when you are assessing projects? Like, yeah, if you could
Sure.
give us your thinking here.
Well, first of all, most importantly, developer or not, we need to make sure that the project makes sense in general and makes sense for the ecosystem. We want to keep it diverse and fill all the verticals. Secondly, well, we like to get to know the team and see if the team is capable. Maybe team members having good track record generally helps us a lot in the decision process. Maybe from a more developer perspective, I like to see the team share but also our core values when it comes to code quality, code safety. So if I can see that the team can can write good quality code, and even if it's an MVP, I think you can easily spot traits of well-written code written with attention to detail, but also written with security in mind. For me, that's a very strong factor to consider. Yeah, that's I think that those are the core factors.
Like you're talking about the code. What stage are the projects so far that you've seen the submissions? So, for example, have you already happened to look at the code of some of them, or are they mostly at the idea stage?
Well, various stages. Some of the projects are quite advanced. I think some of them are undergoing audits as we speak. Some of them, of course, are at a very early stage. But in general, I was able to look at a few pieces of code good few smart contracts, and in general, I'm quite happy with what I'm seeing. I think we have a great ecosystem where most of the developers are really both experienced and yeah, basically pay attention to writing good code and creating good products.
Right. Okay, so now on to you, Max. If you could also give us a brief intro to what WWE Ventures are doing and what are you actually, as an investor, looking in Aleph Zero ecosystem or in the projects that are here.
Yeah. So happy to give some intro on WWE Ventures. We're a $15 million venture fund looking across Web3, all the way from social attestation all the way into DeFi across the board into anything we can find conviction on, as well as various infrastructure, which helps brings Web2 users over to Web3 and utilizing our LP base to do this on this notion we call social capital. As you've seen, our LP base is kind of across the board of large influencers and KOLs in different industries, such as Tobias Harris, Mr. Beast, and a lot of other huge names that many people know. But outside WWE Ventures, investing in myself and I guess in the fund as well, when we look at ecosystem plays, the big thing here is looking at Aleph Zero as kind of this foundational layer, right? You need something that's strong, that is resilient, that has support and network. But the big thing is what projects are actually building on this, because that's what's bringing the users. So when we look at ecosystem plays, infrastructure is a big importance, right? We want bridges, you want onboarding, you want anything that will bring retail and other users on other chains over with ease, without having them to worry about the safety of their assets, as well as how difficult it is to be on chain. So infrastructure is a big thing. Then outside of that, I mean, obviously this is an institutional grade layer one, so it's going to be differentiated from what we see on EVM networks and other chains, such as the Move networks, which are kind of more geared towards users. Although there's some enterprise solutions that doesn't really connect or compare to what Aleph Zero is doing with the instant finality. Zero knowledge proofs, which can be used on an institutional grade level. So I'd love to see some institutions getting on board, even kind of smaller startups that have institutional experience that want to be able to utilize this layer one in ways that we haven't seen before across different comparables. So that's kind of what we're looking at in a very kind of vague but semi-specific way. Really anything that supports the network growth of A0 and brings more users on board.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So actually, I also wanted to touch upon the your background here, and I know you are you're great at designing tokenomics and looking at that. That's actually what you've built your name on. To mention that. So if you were to look at some projects building here. And you can advise the developers when they are designing their, what would you consider a clear red flag on that tokenomic front, or would you consider fair? And yeah, if you could give any advice to the devs on that end.
Yeah, of course. I think the word red flag is hard. I mean, so I guess I'll start there. So I mean, the big thing with red flags is you don't want the team to be dominating the supply. You see it across different assets and EVM chains, and it helps with price growth, but doesn't really help with proper distribution and especially kind of onboarding with the compliance across the world. So the only red flag I really see is heavy team and investor hoarding of the token supply, which doesn't allow for the proper growth of the actual project and ecosystem for users. So that leads into the actual proper distribution, which is obviously you need team and investors to hold some sort of supply. Across the board, we usually see 20-25%, maybe higher, especially when you combine investors in there. But it's sub 50%. There really isn't a right meta. We see teams holding from 20% all the way to 50%, and I think 50% is a lot for a team to hold, but is 20% right? So I mean, it's characteristic of what they're actually doing. I like to look a lot more of what the token is actually providing to the ecosystem. Is the token going to change their game theory mechanics as markets move into bear to bull, as liquidity changes? Is the market going, or is the token going to adjust how they're doing emissions based on what users are currently interacting and building narrative wise? Everything token wise is how can we get our users to engage, hold this token, not change it for liquidity, and continue to be actively involved in whatever protocol they're using the token for. So we've seen in different DeFi protocols with Aave, and some that aren't as successful, where they fail to get tokens or to get holders to hold the tokens. They the holders are more incentivized to sell their tokens rather than to keep engaging with the protocol. And that's the most simply put answer, without diving into intense game theory mechanics as well as complex economics behind the tokens. But that's what I typically look for. Outside of that, I mean, we're seeing a lot of forks, right? Tokenomics of the past 3 years have been a lot of like, oh, this worked for their protocols, so we're just going to fork it and change one thing. And we've seen that over the course of the blockchain. 13 years, people are just forking layer ones, like, oh, this works, we can do the same thing if we change one thing. And unfortunately, that's not the case, because your tokenomics should be unique to what your project is doing, no matter how similar it is to a similar project. And you can't really replicate what someone else has done, because you're not that founder. So you need to appeal to your strengths, appeal to what kind of founder you are, appeal to what your project intends to do, and build those tokenomics around that to support your user growth, the ecosystem growth, and to create a sustainable token that isn't just a pump and dump, or a hype train that once it loses hype, what happens to the token holders.
And what would you say about projects without tokens? Is it like a good idea to pursue and use just the native token, or it's good to have the financing and the control of the own token?
It's a funny time for investors. I mean, we have now the option of investing equity or tokens, or both, with token warrants. So it's kind of, investors have a big advantage at the moment, being able to hedge with two kind of separate entities, is however as I think about it. I think that you're building a business and you're building a token when you have both. And strangely enough, it feels like they are conversely just separate entities, like you're building two separate business models, which is funny when you're looking at traditional business over the past 100, 200, whatever amount of years it actually has been since proper structure has been out. So to answer your question, is it necessary to have a token? And I think it really just depends on what you're actually building. Are you using the token to engage users, or are you just using the token to provide your investors more money? And I mean, a lot of B2B protocols will come up with different ways to use a token that actually makes sense, but I'd say the majority, the token just doesn't make sense in some regards. I don't think that's a bad thing, but there's no reason to force it, because the moment you force it and you don't have a proper plan, you don't have a proper community, you don't have proper tokenomics, well, your token is at zero, and it actually affects your business, because your users, or your people actually buying from your business, will look at this and just think that the project isn't as good as it could be, because the token's at zero. And that doesn't make any sense, but perception is a big key here, right? So it just depends on what you're doing. If you're engaging users, token makes a lot of sense if you build it outright. If you're not, you need to take a serious look at what you're building, who you're appealing to, who you're selling to, and ask yourself, does the token actually make sense? As an investor, I would love you to have a token, but as a user, it just kind of depends. And as someone supporting the ecosystem, you don't want to kill your own project by creating an unnecessary token. So semantics wise, yeah, it really just depends on what you're building, how you can plan it out, how experienced you are with the token, and a lot of other multifaceted factors that are involved in token creation and token integration.
Yeah, I bet that's that's always an option that one might not consider, but yeah, I think it's also an interesting one for some use cases. So maybe let's go to Brian. You're one of
Hi,
the
yeah, I'm here.
yeah, you're one of the teams that were super fast to build on Aleph Zero. I think you've launched your project was
Yeah, I
like
think we are one of the
three.
first.
Yeah, it was like 3 days after the mainnet launch of smart contracts. So, yeah, if you could give us a little, insight into how was your experience with building on Ink, and was that like because of Ink that was so fast, or how did you approach building on Aleph
Okay,
Zero, and
so
how did you find out? Yeah.
yeah. Let me explain a little bit about our previous experience. So we have been working on in outsourcing business for many years. So we're making decentralized application for clients all around the world. So that's why it gives us the opportunity to work with many different technology. So we used to work on the Ethereum, Solidity, Tron, Polygon, Solana, and now Inc. So yeah, it was a different experience. In the past, when we were working with client, we are just part of the product, part of their team. So we provide a technical solution and development for them. But on the Art Zero, we have to build everything from scratch. We have to learn everything from beginning. We have to make product development. We have to make business development, even some fundraising and building a team, everything. Yeah, so it's a completely different experience building on the on on Aleph Zero and on Ink. In terms of technical, yeah, in terms of technical development, we have very similar challenges when we're working on Ink with and many other new technology as well. But I think we get used to it. We have been we are technical people. Your technical thing changing so fast. So as an engineer, we have to adapt and we have to learn fast. Otherwise, we cannot keep ourselves, in this pace. So yeah, the good thing is our team and we are very fast learner. So when the thing come to ink, we learn that from the code. We learn that from asking people around, and and yeah, and it helps us a lot. Um, and what I'm surprised is when I first look at the ink and Aleph Zero. Actually, I didn't look at ink first. I look at the Aleph Zero and technology behind Aleph Zero first before I look at ink. And I'm really amazed with the technology behind, including MPC, GK Snake. Uh, Sorry, my kid is just here. So yeah,
Yeah, no worries.
that that is really the technology behind is really comprehensive. That's what I meant. And I really think that it's just a matter of time before Aleph Zero would be popular in the Web3 space, and more people, more developer will come and experience this and see the difference between Ink, like what we've seen uh, to compare with other technology at the moment in the market.
Great. And how would you say that, like, how's your application since launching on the mainnet? So, would you say that, it's still as fast as you thought, or would you, see
Yeah,
some
actually,
room? Yeah.
we start working on Ink since February 2022, so it's been more than a year now. So we've learned Ink sin is in its infancy. So we build up our knowledge and we perfect our smart contract at every update of Ink. So every single change in Ink, every single update, we have our team to work on that and upgrade the the code as soon as possible. And we learn from the engineer, the resource. Even the resource is very limited at that time. But yeah, we've been asking around, and the team from Parity is very useful for to support us. And then after we build the contract, and we really have a very strong support from Aleph Zero. So you guys have supporting us to provide a grant for auditing our code, and that really helpful because it improve our the security of the smart contract, and gain the trust from the market, and make us become very confident when we launching. So as soon as the mainnet launch, we actually already ready like 1 or 2 months before the mainnet launch. So yeah.
Okay, so let's maybe go deeper into, because you have so much experience with different platforms, so maybe we could go there.
Yeah.
So what would you say that is there in Solidity and that it's missing in Inc? So is there something that's clear to you that the Inc should have and should be added here, and to improve
Yeah,
the dev
so
experience?
basically, the first thing is the language. So the language, Solidity, they have their own language, and it dedicated for EVM, for Ethereum smart contract development. In Inc, we use Rust, right? So yeah, Rust is a lower programming language. So and Solidity is a higher uh, level programming language. So in theory and in practical, Rust can run faster in terms of processing on the code and compiling, and it makes it faster. And also Rust provide a more secure layer in the code itself. So when the developer working on that is they have more control of the code, and more control of the resource, as well as enhance the security layer. In terms of the language itself, um, Rust is a bit more complex to learn to compare with Solidity for sure. Yes, because if you're using JavaScript before, then moving to Solidity is quite simple. But for Rust, it's a little bit a big a small gap. I'm not saying a big gap, but it's a small gap to learn. However, if you are a good programmer and you've been working with many languages, then that is not a barrier at all. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So since we have the other dev here, which is Pete, could you maybe share your insight on, what's from your perspective is a common problem here? When building on with Inc, and what would you advise to other builders? So what should how can they make their apps better and safer?
Sure. I guess what I'm going to say isn't actually specific to Inc, because I think the vast majority of the problems are common throughout the whole blockchain development area, but actually also all of the software development. Maybe one specific aspect of smart contracts that might make it hard for programmers is that the smart contract code seems so simple, right? You're looking at contracts with millions of users, and there's like 200 lines of code, and you could think that, okay, so this is a code I can just write in 15 minutes, and I'll have tons of users. And that is not the case, because while the code might look simple, the stakes are very high. So you need to use a lot of well, diligence and good practices when writing the code, right? So this actually leads me to well, my further advice would be, don't rush it, right? It's very tempting to be ahead of everyone, um, and well, it's cool if you can do that while still retaining the focus on quality and safety of the code, right? Because this is what comes first. Because when a smart contract, if something in a smart contract goes bad, it goes bad big, and the fallout is quite severe, right? So, well, building on that, before you start thinking about deploying your code or even writing it, get to know the platform you're using. Well, specifically in our case, get to know Inc and Rust and Aleph Zero, right? Because every language has some quirks. Every language has some limitations, and well, especially in context of smart contracts, you need to be acutely aware of those quirks and limitations in order to be able to write code that basically will work under any conditions, under any circumstances. Well, to that end, once you start developing, you need to devote a lot of time to testing your code, right? You don't want to push something that will surprise you and your users to the mainnet or even to the testnet, right? So, well, good practice is, and you'll notice that it's actually not that different from, I don't know, deploying an e-commerce website. But first you start off with writing unit tests locally, then maybe end-to-end tests. It's worth noting that actually Inc now supports end-to-end tests, which is pretty cool, and yeah, it gives you a lot of, well, expressive powers while testing locally. Only when you're sure that your test coverage is really high, and all your local tests are passing, and you're confident that your platform is working okay, you deploy it to testnet, and you start testing there, right? The local tests are not enough. You need to have real users on testnet. You need to test for any edge cases, like what happens if I don't know, put zero where the value should be, or if I put a negative number, or some extreme cases like that. Also, what happens if an incredibly large number of users try to access my contract simultaneously, or what if a specific account makes two requests one after the other, right? Will I have any something like reentrancy problems or stuff like that, right? So this is what you need to look out for. Also, and I think this is really imperative for for projects who are serious. You need to make sure to get an audit from like a widely respected auditing firm. There's a few of those. So especially if you want users to come to your product, publishing the results of an audit and getting like a stamp of approval from an auditing firm is really, really important. And they will actually help you verify that your code is correct and safe, and help you gain some additional confidence. Of course, it's not enough to just write something random and send it to an auditing firm in order for them to make your code good. No, of course your code needs to be good up front, and they will just help you find what you missed and give you this additional security. And something that might be, well, perhaps counterintuitive in the like anonymous blockchain space is we encourage the projects to publish their code, because even as the name contract implies, you want your users to like know what contract they're interacting with, right? So if you have a project and your code is private and no one can see it, well, how do you expect your users to enter into a contract without reading the contract, right? Of course, the like contract intuition is not necessarily the most correct with smart contracts, but it gives you an idea of how you should treat your code. Yeah. So I guess and apart from that, all the like good development practices that we know from like traditional software development, of course, hold, right? Yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah, I think the basic thing is that what we're doing here is programmable money. So if you're dealing with that, you want to make it safe. Like you wouldn't trust a bank if it was like
Of course.
not that secure as they say. Yeah, so maybe we'll get back to you, Max, with the question that I think is really interesting to most of the people in the space. Like, does the tech matter for you when you're taking investment decisions? Like, is it does it influence your decision? Is it not, or are you looking purely at the hype? What's your take on that?
I think it depends what type of investor you are, right? So the tech makes a big difference in the security, the efficiency, and the innovativeness in differentials across comparing networks or projects that is a big factor in long-term investing. Being having secure tech is what I'm hearing across the board with auditing and open sourcing and making sure that that people can see and understand your code is obviously a big factor for users to be able to engage and as well as people to buy your products in the long term. But this is pretty simple knowledge. We know this across Web 2 and traditional industries. I think that the space is rather interesting at the moment due to the differentials and kind of big increase of different tech we're seeing across the board. And I think it's important as a long term investor to look at these projects and ask yourself, how do they compare? How will they be used differently? How is the tech different? And in what way does this differential help make this project have longevity? Of course, after we've seen all of these kind of failures across the board, it's important to question, are these semantic errors or tech errors? And we see a lot of vulnerabilities getting taken advantage of security wise. So yeah, I mean, in a whole kind of circular way, tech's important. Tech's important for investor, but I mean, as a short-term investor, the short-term investors don't care about technology, but that's not who you're looking to appeal to. They're looking at like hype, and I guess tech plays in a way of like people can hype up how differentiated the tech is, and the crazy different things the tech can do. But at the end of the day, you want your technology to go hand in hand with the long-term vision of your project and how it can bring longevity to what you're doing. And I know this is like kind of a vague answer at the end of the day, but it's there's so many different projects and so much different tech that it's hard to give like a clear and concise answer of what tech should be. It's rather, this is a project, this is the tech, this is how it is different from comparables in the same market, and you go from there. That's kind of the basic answer.
Yeah. All right. So also, I think we could a bit wrap it up, and I think we can also start with you, Max, because I know you're in the space like since what 10 years or 13. So maybe what's your take on what big trends are you seeing right now apart from maybe meme coins, and do you see any big catalysts coming to the space, or what's your take on where we are and where we're heading?
Yeah. So I've been in this space since I was 14. When I was 14, God, it's been half my life basically. I was doing intermediary transactions for users on form sites back in the day when exchanges weren't relevant or even a thing. And the space, I think it's important to understand kind of the history of evolution of the space before I can go into what I'm seeing narrative wise. So in 2010, it was like Bitcoin. I believe Litecoin was out at that point. If not, it was coming out. And maybe a few other kind of no-name coins that were pretty much Bitcoin forks. And that was the space. It was people who believed in this long-term vision of what Bitcoin could be and what could it bring to our payment and holding systems for store of wealth outside of centralized entities and the bank failures of what created what Bitcoin is today. And then you fast forward to I'm going to skip the 2013 kind of crap coin area of mining and just random forks of nothingness that people were just pumping. It was a funny time, but that area was just kind of irrelevant. 2016, I think, is the most crucial interoperable part of our technology of connecting all these cycles of the introduction of smart contracts, oracles, and these different things that you can do. And what happened was we went from a store of value to an ecosystem of crazy amounts of different technology, all the way to account abstraction, meaning the way that you can access a wallet with only a Web 2 profile like a Gmail account, all the way to blockchains being able to communicate and connect to each other in different ways that the user doesn't even realize. It's very comparable to what we see with the internet craze. In the very early days of the internet, only people with large knowledge could understand and build on it and actually use it, to where we are now, where you go on a website and the user just has to click a button, but they have no ideas of the inner workings behind it. So if I would to compare it to that, we're kind of maybe half to three-fourths of the way there. I mean, mass adoption is a term that is very hard to dictate in current moments. You can just know when mass adoption hits. It's hard to measure, mass adoption's coming. It's rather just, there's a section of time before mass adoption, and then there's that moment during mass adoption, which is where everyone's using it. And it's hard to like really measure because it's kind of black and white. There's either mass adoption or there's not, right? So we're not at mass adoption yet. We're not to the point where users can go on random sites and not realize they have a wallet, not realize they have tokens, and where it just feels like the internet's to them. We're not there yet. So we're kind of in the inner workings of it. It's hard to compare it to the .com bubble because that was its own phase entirely, and it's hard to even compare 21 to that because it wasn't an outsourcing of tech. It was an outsourcing of hype, which is similar to 2017. But now we're seeing all this different tech, all these different ways of infrastructure and building and bringing users over, and all these different ways of how Web2 users can integrate and use Web3 without having the knowledge. But we aren't there yet. So I think it's another 5 to 10 years, maybe less. But we're in the building phase. It's the exciting part. This is where projects of maturity, where projects of legitimacy are building real things that people can actually use outside of previous hype cycles. 21 was that introduction. You started seeing DeFi, people could use and integrate and use these protocols, and was it's hard to even imagine that this wasn't around in 2017. It was just like trading on sexes or centralized exchanges. Now it's like you can integrate and engage in all these protocols, and community building of Web3 is even more crazy than what we've seen in the past. It was kind of like cultish before. Now it's like an actual community of supporters and people who are engaging and using protocols. And the next step really is getting more Web2 users over into this kind of community orientation to where they're engaging and using protocols without them even thinking about it and without them even knowing they have tokens. So that's what I'm seeing. You're seeing account abstraction, you're seeing interoperability, you're seeing how modular chains can introduce scalability. There's still a bunch of scalability concerns in the industry. No one wants to use an EVM chain and pay $60 a transaction, especially it doesn't help businesses. How are enterprises going to build an EVM where their users have to pay 10, 60, 50, 20, whatever the number is per transaction? It doesn't make any sense on a business standpoint. So scalability is next. How can EVM scale? How can non-EVM scale? So it's like this technology hub. We have all this different tech. Which tech is going to reign supreme? Which tech is going to bring in the users? And then that's that's the point where we hit mass adoption. It's all the users are on Web3 without knowing they're in Web3. So
Yeah.
I answered the question, but didn't I? We're in this like middle stage basically, or 3/4 stage. There's just a bunch of tech.
No, I bet like user experience is something that I always refer to as well. Like using crypto now is we got used to that, but we always can make it more seamless. So I bet that's one of the directions we will get, and we need to get there. And yeah, that's something also we want to do here in Azero and our products. But yeah, let's also go to Brian. What would you say that what's the big trend that you are looking to in Web3 right now?
Oh yeah, I think at the moment Web3 is a bit crazy, right? Everyone is talking about frog and dog and cat everywhere. But I think at the moment there's a lot of people that into crypto mostly because of for money gain. However, in the long term, I still thinking that technology will be the key things, and I'm very agree with Max about the the future when we can uh, um, um, lose the gap between Web 2 and Web 3 and make sure people don't see the difference. The technology, the application they're using in Web 2 actually has been built and built by a Web 3 technology. So yeah, that is a big thing. I think at the moment they still have a gap, like is a barrier to avoid Web 2 or normal user to use Web 3, because even like you saying you using wallet and token, things like that is very a strange language for many people outside Web 3. So I'm really looking for the technology in the next few years that we can close that barrier and break that barrier, to make sure that the transition between Web 2 application and Web 3 application is smooth, and there is no technical term or technical barrier for the normal user. I mean, to use technology.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. So yeah, I bet I could ask Peter, Magda about their thoughts, but I think all our thoughts are to what we're building. So we want to grow it, and that's what we're doing here. So I think we can already go to the questions from the community. So if you want to add anything, ask us about anything, then give us the request for that, and yeah, we can start with Andromeda swap, as we already have them waiting for quite some time. So yeah, the floor is yours.
Oh, cool. Well, nice to hear you guys speaking tonight. Lots of good stuff. Yeah, I was curious to hear. I was really curious to hear more about I guess Aleph Zero and how exactly the privacy layer is going to work. Is it going to be an L2 on Aleph Zero, or is it going to be like a side chain, or is it like going to be built in to the main blockchain itself?
So, if I may,
please do.
So basically, the way we design the privacy layer, and I'm saying we, but I'm not actually part of the privacy team, so I'm gonna do my best to convey it like it is. So the design is that it's sort of, well, you can think of the privacy layer as a framework that you can choose to use, but you're not forced to.
I think that was me that was speaking just now.
So
this might be an older recording.
You can think of as like opt-in privacy, right? Whenever you need to write a dApp that utilizes some privacy aspects, you would basically use this. Of course, there's elements of the chain that allow this framework to function, but at its core, it's a separate and almost chain agnostic, let's say library or framework, right? And yeah, actually, I would say the most challenging part when designing a framework like that is, well, aside of course from all the hardcore cryptography that's involved, zk snarks and circuits and whatnot, actually the compliance aspect is something that we really focus on. And yeah, I think stay tuned, because we have some very interesting takes on that, and I think the product that we're building will check all the boxes, so to speak.
Okay, cool. So it's not gonna be like pools. It's gonna.
Yeah, this is definitely me from an older recording. Tripping me out hearing my own voice from a few months later.
It's not gonna be like zk pools. It's gonna be like you shield your transactions, I guess.
Well, at least part of it, I think. There's going to be more, but here I will need to defer to to other team members that know more about the actual inner workings of this library.
Okay, that's all. Or if somebody else wants to answer, it's cool.
I think Anthony might also have some insight here on what actually we are trying to target with that solution. If you could add that.
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone. So like the general idea with the privacy layer is to make the chain sort of, as a developer or as a startup or as an enterprise, you can either build directly on Azero, or you can stay with your preferred network. And if you're looking for a sophisticated programmable privacy solution, you can just use Liminal, and then the private state of smart contracts would be held within Aleph Zero, which then benefits the network, obviously, from traffic. Like the idea here is to an extent, I guess, compete with different permission solutions. So for instance, if a business is looking to deploy on a blockchain and they need to have some of their data obfuscated, they can they need to ensure security and so on and so forth. They can either use something permissioned, or they can use a public chain with some privacy features. Like we're seeing most interest on that front when it comes to DeFi. So, for instance, institutional lending and borrowing, and healthcare, which was quite surprising because, as you know, I remember like this vast interest in different healthcare blockchain applications back from like 2017, 2018, and not much really worked in real life, at least. And now the recent trend that we've been seeing for quite a while already is that the largest sort of issue with anything healthcare related is data compliance, or like data storage compliance. So, say if you're a healthcare company, healthcare enterprise, you need to comply with local regulations as far as the like storing of the data is concerned. And what we're exploring at the moment is whether it's doable to say have a like a DID based solution where the user, or the patient, is actually the owner of the data, their health data, and they authorize different institutions to access this data, and therefore that somewhat relieves different enterprises from being data controller of the entire data set. So yeah, stay tuned. Like, we have one very interesting development on that front, so might be something to look forward to.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Actually, two of them. Two developments on that front.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. I have one more small question. It's a really short one, so the other people can ask. With Ledger integration, I was curious. I was trying to stake with it, and I could have asked probably this in the Discord, but I was trying to stake with the Ledger, and it gave me some errors. Is there a Ledger version you guys are coming out with soon for the developer side that will work with the Nano Ledger S?
So on that, we'd have to check with the Zondex team, actually. We can get back to you on this.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right, I see we have Andromeda Swap back with us again. If you can unmute yourself, and you can ask your questions.
Okay, it's really great to be here. I'm happy to be here among you. And I'm really excited about the progress of the ecosystem with regards to funding and development in general. So basically, the question I have is if there's like for decentralized cloud or file storage, if there's any provision for that, or there are plans for that in the future for Aleph Zero.
Pete or Anthony, I bet you might be more informed than me.
Sure. So we don't have a specific timeline for this just yet. Obviously the main challenge with all of blockchain related storage is the cost, right? So it just doesn't really make sense cost wise compared to anything that we currently have in Web 2. So yeah, it's something that we're kind of researching, but don't really have a specific roadmap for it yet.
Okay. No problem in that case.
All right. So, would anyone want to add anything from our guests or from the listeners? That's the best time to do so. Yeah, if not, I think we can wrap it up. I hope you got some good advice from our guests. I hope you enjoyed that. If you have another questions, you can jump in. I see you raising your.
Yeah, sorry guys. It looks like this is kind of an old recording. They just uploaded it, but anyways, still got some good information. Yeah, this is definitely a couple months old. I just didn't recognize it at first, but it's probably gonna be like 3 or 4 months old. Probably why they didn't announce it in the channel. But anyways, good information. I hope this helped you guys out, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace out.